One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Okay, if you are listening to this podcast in real time, I am so excited because the doors to Amy Porterfield's signature program, Digital Course Academy, are still open, but only for a few more days. The doors actually close for enrollment on September 17th, 2020. So if you're listening to this later, I'm sorry you've already missed out, but if you are still thinking about joining Digital Course Academy for the class of 2020, I highly recommend you go to crystalprofit.com/DCA to check out all of the bonuses that I'm offering for any people that sign up for Digital Course Academy through me. These bonuses include my own signature program, Profit Podcasting, that teaches you all about how to start, launch, and market your own podcast. So not only will you get Amy's amazing program, Digital Course Academy, and her bonuses, but you'll get access to my signature program, Profit Podcasting, plus our own private exclusive community that will help you get to the finish line of your digital course that much faster. I also have the DCA Digest bonus, which is kind of the Cliff Notes version of Digital Course Academy. Every time a new module drops, I'm going to have exclusive insider tips for where you might get stuck, where I got stuck, and how you can avoid some of the common pitfalls that course creators make. Plus, I'm also going to show you where to pay attention to the most critical pieces of the program. There are even more bonuses that I can't just go on and on about today, but I want you to go check them out. Go to crystalprofit.com/DCA if you're thinking about joining Digital Course Academy, or you can click the link in this episode and it will take you straight there. Again, that's crystalprofit.com/DCA, and don't miss out on this opportunity to join the class of 2020, but the doors close on September 17th, 2020, so don't miss out. crystalprofit.com/DCA. Oh, today's topic. I'm so excited about milestones. So I want to tell you a quick, fun fact about me, whatever you want to call it. I usually do really, really well celebrating other people whenever they've hit milestones. And I think I've mentioned this on here before, but I want to have an Enneagram coach or someone who goes in depth on the Enneagram, because I think that this is a common trait between Enneagram 3s. That's what I am. And if you're not familiar with the Enneagram, you're like, well, what are you even talking about? So the Enneagram is on a scale from 1 to 9, and most people fall really heavily with one number more so than the rest. And each number has a personality identifying factor. Like I'm a 3, which is a achiever. And then my dad is a 7, who is the happy-go-lucky, life of the party kind of guy. My mom is a 5, who really enjoys the details and really just diving deep into research mode. She loves all that kind of stuff. So we've taken this quiz as a family. My husband, I think he was a 3 as well. But it's funny because he scored a 3, but I see him more as a 9, which I think is the peacekeeper. So it's definitely very interesting in how all of us are so different in how we receive information, how we process it and everything. But I think that most Enneagram 3s, the achievers, are really bad on celebrating milestones or celebrating goals, right? So shout out to my other Enneagram 3s that you see a goal, right? You plan for this goal to happen. You reach that goal and then you immediately say, well, I could have done more. Or, well, it's great. I got 100, but really now my goal is 1,000, right? This is how my mind constantly works. So I am not very good about celebrating all of my milestones, because as soon as I hit one, I've already moved on to the next 5 goals that I want to hit. I understand. I need to work on this because people have asked me well, what do you do whenever, you were podcasting for a year, or whenever you hit your 100th episode, or you hit 200, all these things. And I'm yeah, we need to talk about that, because I need to make sure that I do this correctly and that we celebrate, because 200 episodes, which is coming up very soon, is going to be a big deal. Okay. 100, I don't think I celebrated it enough. So let's dive all into how we can celebrate milestones for your podcast and what that looks like. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? Okay, so we are talking about celebrating your podcast milestones. And I explained a little bit in the intro about what that means, and you probably have an idea of what to expect, right? We're talking about those big goals that you have, whether it is your downloads or the actual episode numbers, or it could be a certain amount of time. So I wanted to break down exactly what a milestone is and how you can celebrate it. So first and foremost, I think that the most common milestone is hitting 1,000 downloads, right? Because that's holy moly, that is a big deal. I know for me, as a podcaster, and this was way before I started teaching podcasting. This was when this show was the Profit Pod, or no, not the Profit. This is before this show was the Profit Podcast. It was when it was the Rookie Life Podcast. My only goal was to get 1,000 downloads. That's all I wanted to happen. Of course, I wanted to grow my audience and have a big impact, but internally, right, as my own internal motivation and goal was to get 1,000 downloads. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that took me 5 months to make that happen. And hopefully you've listened to this podcast enough and you have tools and strategies and resources to help you reach that goal a lot faster than it took me. I have people tell me all the time, like, oh, I hit 1,000 downloads in my first month. And I have students of mine, it takes them a month and a half. And some people, it takes them 6 months. So we are all over the board whenever it comes to when you will achieve your downloads. It depends on your audience and your niche and how often you post and a ton of things. So that's why people ask me, how long will it take me to get my first 1,000 downloads? I'm like, I can't even give you like a real answer to that because there are literally so many variables that go into this number. But I do think that this is something that you should celebrate. I even think that you should celebrate every 100 downloads you get going up to your 1,000, because this was something that I did in the beginning. And I'll have to go back because I still have these posts. They're on my Facebook page. So I'll have to dig a few of them out and share them in the show notes. But I have these Canva images that I created that celebrated my first 100, 200, 300. I might have gone by increments of 100 until I got to 1,000. But I literally posted these on social media every time they happened. And the reason why is because it was a way for me to talk about my podcast success without it being like, oh, look at me, look at me. I was putting this post out and saying, thank you so much to my audience. And those that were in my audience were like, oh, this is really cool. But those that weren't were thinking, well, what is she up to over there? What is Crystal actually doing? What is this podcast that she's talking about? So it's a way for you to market, like it's a secret ninja marketing hack for you to talk about your show in a way that's not just look at me, look at me. It's you telling your audience, thank you so much. We collectively have reached this download goal that we had set forth for ourselves. So thank you so much for your appreciation and for listening to the show. So that's the first thing, is being able to achieve that 1,000 download mark is usually what most podcasters strive for. But again, I cannot give everybody an exact definition of when that will happen for you. I say definition. That's not the right word. That's not the right terminology, but the right pathway for you to get there faster. I can just tell you what's worked for me, what's worked for my students, and to give you just the God's honest truth that it took me 5 months to get there. So if you get there anytime within the first 2 months of your podcast, and that's incredible. You're already doing better than I was whenever I first started. I've actually had a few members of the Potty People community. They've been celebrating that they hit their first 1,000 and 1,500 downloads within their first 2 months of their podcast. So shout out to y'all, my Potty People. Y'all are incredible. Keep doing amazing things and sharing your awesome messages, because that's definitely something to celebrate. So that's one milestone. And that's usually most podcasters, most brand new podcasters want to celebrate their first 1,000 downloads. The next one is 1 year podcasting. That's usually the second milestone that a lot of people want to celebrate. And I've had people ask me well, I usually because they're posting once a week. This podcast is very different, right? Because we come at you all the time. I'm just shoving podcasting information in your face twice a week at the bare minimum. And if you listen to the daily podcast, the Potty Report, then you're getting a dose of that. You're getting a dose of me a lot. And I get it. It's a lot of podcasting information, but hopefully you're geeking out on it just as much as I am. But this show reached so much, I'm trying to think of the word, episode, it's not links. I've reached episode numbers that most podcasts won't see in a shorter amount of time. And that's because I publish twice a week with this podcast, the Profit Podcast. That wasn't always the case. It took me a year to get to around the 50 something mark, right? Like, and that is what typical podcasts will do whenever they release one show every single week, right? Because there's 52 weeks in a year. Let's think about this, like logically, 52 weeks in a year. If you release once a week, that's around 52 episodes in 1 year. So people will tell me, well, I'm not going to reach 100 episodes in 1 year, but I've been podcasting for a year. And for me, like that's an incredible milestone. And I tell them, heck yes, it is. Do you know how many people okay, so get this. I love throwing this stat out again to the members of my Potty People community. I tell them, get to episode 15, because most podcasts burn out between the 14 and 15 episode, like sometime around there. You will go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and you will see podcasts that published episodes up to around 13, maybe 14, and then you don't see any more episodes. They didn't publish anything else after that. So I tell my people, look, just get to 15. Like get to 15, you will be over the hump, and hopefully you will continue podcasting. So yeah, 1 year podcasting is a huge freaking deal. And I think that you should celebrate it. So the question is, how? How should I celebrate it, right? Like, how can I get my community involved online? How can I get people on my email list or my Facebook group or people on my social media to kind of join in the celebration? Well, I think that you have to do this strategically by setting up your content and the information leading up to the day that you're celebrating it's been a year. And I know most people are like, well, I started on this date last year, but it's not going to fall on the day that I publish my episodes. It's okay, guys. Let's not be so rigid about all of our rules and guidelines and all the things. If it's close enough around when you published your podcast the year before, then that's good enough. We'll call that your birthday, right? Your podcast birthday, even if it's in the same month, right? Like I'm not super crazy about rules and being all rigid about all that kind of stuff, but I do want you to pick a date that you're going to put out a podcast episode and say, this is the day that I'm going to celebrate the podcast. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. You can actually put out a podcast episode saying, I'm celebrating it's 1 year of the podcast, or you could not say anything on your show and simply share about it on social media. Does that make sense? Like you don't have to make it a huge deal on your podcast if you don't want to, because I know some people are like, it just kind of feels weird to talk about how amazing the podcast is and how awesome I am on the show, but it would feel a little bit more fun to play around on social media and like share a GIF or a video or IG story or something that's like, oh, I'm so happy that we are celebrating 1 year of the podcast. Make sure you go check it out. If that feels more natural to you, then go that route, whichever one works for you. But I do think that you should celebrate whenever you've been podcasting for a year, because it is a big freaking deal. Like I want you, if you've been podcasting for a year, even if you've been podcasting for 6 months, oh my gosh, give yourself a pat on the back, because it is a big deal. If you've made it to episode 15 of your podcast, that is a big deal and it should be celebrated. Now, depending on how you want to celebrate that, we're going to talk about some other options that you can do. But for 1 year, I would recommend that you do at least a few posts on social media to get your community excited, and that'll just make it that much more fun. Okay, the other milestone that I know some of you will hit within the first 2 years of your podcast is 100 episodes. So this is when you can go a little bit bigger with your celebrations, and we're going to talk about a way to do this in a second, but I want you to really go all out on your 100th episode. I know I'm teaching, right? I'm teaching you to do this. Do as I say, not as I do, because I didn't do this very well. And I think because I didn't really 100 kind of snuck up on me, silly as that is, right? Because I knew it was coming. I should have seen it coming. Hang on, I'm actually looking at my content calendar and I'm trying to see when it happened. Okay, so my 100th episode happened in November 2019. Actually, I have the date right here in front of me. So it was November 12th, 2019. So I bet if I know myself really well, I did not make a huge deal about it because it was close to the holidays and I didn't want to do this whole thing leading up to it that I was going to have to manage and control and make sure that everything was going on. Plus, I'm pretty sure that I launched my digital course in December of last year. Actually, I know for a fact because now I'm looking at my calendar and I see it. And I bet that I was nervous that if I started talking about that, it would take away from releasing the course, which is real silly in hindsight, now that I think about it. But I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So I didn't do it very well. Only now, knowing what I know, can I say, hey, this is how I can do better. And you better believe that episode 200, which is coming up very soon, we will actually hit that before the end of October 2020. We're going to do this a little bit bigger. We're going to do things differently. Okay. So how can you celebrate your different podcast milestones? Well, first of all, actually, I want to go back real fast because maybe you're thinking, well, how do I know when all of these things happen? Maybe you have a different numbering system and you don't even know which episode number you're on, which let's change that. Okay. Let's have a good content calendar that has your episode title, your episode date, when your episode goes live, and the episode number. And then I have a really cool resource that's all about the content calendar. And I want you to go watch this YouTube video because it's all about how to set up a content calendar in Asana. And I love Asana. It's my lifesaver. And I think that if you set up a content calendar in there for your podcast, you can track these things better. And then that way, your 100th episode won't sneak up on you and you can actually make a bigger deal about it. And who knows, you might get a huge boost in your downloads whenever you're approaching one of these milestones for your podcast. So,
being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
how do we celebrate? Okay, wait, hang on. I keep saying this, and then I'm going back. I'm all over the place today. I want to make sure for those of you that are Buzzsprout users, there is a new, and I don't remember exactly how long ago they updated this, but it's really cool. So if you're a Buzzsprout user, you are probably used to receiving emails whenever you do hit a big milestone. Because whenever you hit your first 10, 25, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 500, 750, 1,000, they send you an email. And it's really cool because it's very motivating. You're like, oh, dang, I got my first 100 downloads. This is awesome. And then it keeps going. So if you need something to share on social media, if you're like, I don't want to go create something, Buzzsprout actually does this for you. They'll send you an email and it is like, it's just share to Facebook or Twitter. Like I'm looking right here. I think you can share it to Instagram. Probably if you just take a screenshot, you could share it on Instagram as well. But they make it easy to where it's like a one click and you can share it on social media. That is one of the easiest ways to get the info out about your show. But what's cool is they have your podcast download achievements. Then it has how many overall podcast downloads you have and how many episodes you've published. So I'm looking at the Profit Podcast, and it's telling me, okay, you have published 189 episodes, because I have a few bonuses thrown in there. And it says publish 11 more to receive your next achievement. So it's telling me that if I publish 11 more episodes of this podcast, I'm going to hit 200 episodes, which is a big deal. Guys. Like, and I'm really excited. I have okay, so I'll tell you now what I was going to tell you a second ago. I just wanted to make sure and point out to all of my Buzzsprout peeps, make sure you go check this out. So you go into your Buzzsprout account, you go to stats, that's the tab you go to, and then all the way over to the right, you'll see achievements. And when you click on that, it'll tell you what your achievements are, and then you can actually click on the little icons and share, like, oh, congratulations, you've published this many episodes. Congratulations, you have this many downloads. So that's a fun way to market your show and talk about it on social media. Okay, now, how can we celebrate these milestones? So first and foremost, I think one of the easiest things you can do is create an event whenever you know something is coming up. Like if it's a milestone, like a birthday, right? A podcast birthday is coming up. You can actually set a date. Like let's say you wanted to create a Facebook event. So you could create a Facebook event where you're going to go live, and maybe you have a glass of champagne or a bubble water or something. And you're like, hey guys, thanks for celebrating with me. I'm celebrating 1 year of the podcast and I'm really excited. If you haven't listened to it yet, go to blah, blah, blah. And you give them all of your podcast information and say, I just wanted to share this moment with you because I'm really excited. I know that might sound super cheesy, but I can tell you right now that if you put your own personality spin on this, your audience is going to be excited about it. Why? Because they're your audience. They're your people. They're excited to hear from you and learn from you and listen to you and be educated by you. So they're going to be excited and celebrate with you. Another thing that you can do is actually send a newsletter to your email list. And what I think is really cool is you can say, okay, guys, here's what's up. Here's the deal. Here's when everything is going down. And you can invite them to your Facebook event or wherever you're holding this virtual event. You could do a Zoom call and invite everybody on. Like, hey guys, we're going to hang out for 10 minutes and talk about, your favorite episodes or what you liked most about the podcast or your biggest takeaway or your favorite interview. You can do this however you want. But I think that it would be cool if you send out an email to everyone on your email list and say, okay, on this date, at this time, we're all going to go to this one place and talk about the podcast and celebrate. So bring your favorite beverage and come celebrate with us. That sounds like a lot of fun, right? And I mean, maybe you're saying, but Crystal, I have 10 listeners. That's awesome. You have 10 listeners that would be excited to celebrate with you for your podcast birthday. Okay? Like, I want to get that stinking thinking out of your mind. I want you to be excited to celebrate every milestone with your community, with your people, because those are the people that have gotten you there. I never want you to forget how you've hit any of these milestones. You didn't do this alone. Right? You're not in this podcast journey by yourself. And if you are, how selfish of you. Stop that. Like, quit that. We don't do that around here. We are people that have servant's heart, and we show up for our people and we deliver valuable information to them so that they are entrenched with everything we're sharing on our podcast. They're excited about it and they cannot wait for our shows to come out every single week. That's the type of content I want you to create. And I think that your audience has every right to celebrate with you because you would not be here without them. I would not be here showing up every single week for this podcast without y'all. Why would I do this? Why would I just sit here and listen to myself talk all the time? No. I absolutely do this for y'all. And I'm so grateful for every single one of you. Okay, so the other way that you can celebrate is with a giveaway. So of course, I'm teasing this now because this is what we do, right? We talk about things well ahead of time. That way you don't feel blindsided and say, oh, Crystal, I did not know that your 200th episode was coming up. Nope, you're getting an exclusive sneak peek in episode 187 that you better get your hearts ready because episode 200, we're doing a big giveaway. Okay? Like, just mark your calendars now and be ready because episode 200, we're doing some giveaways. And I'm really, really excited about this. So I'm going to tell you what my giveaway is going to look like, and then you can formulate this for yourself. And I'm probably going to do an entirely different episode just about giveaways because I've had people ask me about, hey, I want to do a giveaway for my podcast launch and, for other milestones that they've achieved. But I specifically want to talk about how to do a giveaway for a milestone achievement with your podcast. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to my people. I'm going to do most of the things that we just talked about, which is why I talked about them. I'm going to create a Facebook event. I am going to email my list and tell them exactly what to do on which day, at what time, and what they will be qualified for once they enter into this giveaway, like what the prizes are, all the details, the deadlines, all the information that they need to know. I will put that in an email. I'm also going to post about this on social media. So I will post about the event coming up, what date it is, what time, like, y'all just go ahead and get ready. Get your hearts ready because you'll probably be annoyed with me by the time episode 200 comes around. You're going to say, oh my gosh, thank the Lord it's finally here so she can shut up about publishing 200 episodes. Y'all, 200 episodes in 2 years is a really big deal. So I am going to shout it from the rooftops and be so excited about it. Okay, so for the giveaway, how is that going to be structured? How is that actually going to work? So I don't have all of the details on how exactly I will select the winners yet, but I am going to find things that are focused around this podcast. So it makes sense that I might offer a microphone that someone could use, or I actually have, and this is a little sneak peek, because my book is coming out, I'm going to be giving away signed copies of my book when episode 200 drops. So pay attention for those details because my book, Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast, comes out October 20th, 2020, which is actually before episode 200. So just be on the lookout, okay? You can actually order the book on Amazon right now. Just to let you know, there's a pre-order thing that you can do. So there's going to be information in the show notes about it, but I'm just telling you now that it's coming. So signed copies of the book, possibly podcasting equipment. I actually have an extra Chaotica eyeball. If you don't know what that is, I know that sounds kind of, like extra eyeball. What are you talking about? So this is a sound, I'm trying to think of, because it's a foam thing. Let's label this in layman's terms, right? It's a foam thing that goes over your microphone. What it does is it helps cancel out echo and it absorbs all the sound. And I used mine for a really long time, except I don't love how it looked on live video, like, because it blocked like half of my face. But I think that this is an awesome tool for you to use if you struggle with a lot of echo wherever you record your podcast. So that's another giveaway that I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to structure this based on someone leaving the podcast a rating and a review and sharing it on social media. Now, this is where I don't have all the details worked out on like how I'm going to pick the winners and like, do they have to share it this amount of times? And they left a review here and they left a review here. Does that count extra? I'm going to have to figure out all those details. I don't have it worked out yet, but I think that doing a giveaway for a milestone episode is a really fun way to celebrate because people are going to be excited. Everyone's always excited when there's prizes involved. I'm probably going to get some Amazon gift cards and give those away as well, just because the more winners, like the more the merrier. Like everyone gets so much more involved. I'm probably going to get some of my favorite coffee and coffee mugs because y'all know I love my coffee. So it's just going to be a really big deal for me. And I think that that's where the fun comes in. You have to do things that spark your personality and align with who you are, because that's where the energy comes out. Like, can you hear it in my voice? I'm excited to do this. I'm really pumped up. But if you're listening and you're like, that sounds awful, I'd never want to do any of that, well, then find something that's going to work for you and your audience. I know y'all love coffee. I know y'all like it when I talk about podcast equipment. I know that y'all like to read and listen to audiobooks. So there's a lot of things that I can work with based on what I know about this audience, and that's what I'm going to pull from. But for your audience, if you have a gardening podcast and you're coming up on your 1 year, could you give away some fun gardening tools for someone to leave a review for your podcast or leave a rating or share about it on social media? I mean, I think that you can make this so much fun if you just get a little creative with it and make it fun, right? Like, I've said this before, but my new motto in life is chase fun. Not just kind of look for it and hope that you stumble upon it. No. I want you to chase fun. Like, you are a wild tiger and you are just looking for your next meal. Like, chase fun down, because it makes the process so much more enjoyable and you get so much more out of it whenever you can have fun in the process. But that's all I have to share with you today about celebrating your milestone episodes. Again, we talked about celebrating your first 1,000 downloads, your first year of podcasting, and your first 100 episodes. We talked a little bit about giveaways, but I think I'm going to do an episode specifically about giveaways once I've actually done episode 200, because then I'll have more insider tips and strategies and all the things to share with you. So be on the lookout for that. And like I said, Start a Binge-Worthy Podcast is now available for pre-order on Amazon. So go to Amazon, check it out. There's going to be a link in the episode description. So go to crystalprofit.com/episode 187 to learn more about the book. It's going to be here October 20th, 2020, and I'm so excited. But that's all I have for you today. So remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Crystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, "Send Crystal a text message." And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.